Hello, welcome to the channel. Subscribe, leave a like, and don't forget to write a comment. Enjoy watching.
I knew from the second I saw her name in the subject line that it wasn't going to be good. Julia never emailed unless it was something she didn't want to say out loud. That was her thing. She'd rather keep her voice clean than her conscience clear. I clicked it open with one hand while the other gripped my coffee like it was holding me up. It was short. 4 paragraphs, 3 lies, and one final insult. She wrote that this year the family had decided, unanimously, she made sure to note, that it might be better if I didn't join them at the lake. It's just been such a stressful year for everyone, and we thought a quieter trip might help us all reconnect. We love you, Claire. We're just doing what's best for the family. Hope you understand. I read it twice, even though once was more than enough. It wasn't just the words, it was the smug, soft tone behind them, the kind you use with someone you think is too unstable to handle the truth. Hope you understand. No, what you hope is that I'll stay quiet, like always, take the hit, and keep playing along like the little jester in the corner. You hope I'll sulk a bit, maybe cry into a glass of cheap wine, and let you all have your picture-perfect weekend at the cabin without the awkward shadow of me in the background. Well, I did cry. I'll give you that. Not because I was hurt, but because I was angry, and sometimes, with women like me, that looks the same. I cried for about 5 minutes, long enough to remember every other time they pulled this same kind of thing and called it love. Long enough to remember the way Mom told me when I was 13 that I had a difficult energy, whatever the hell that meant, and how that phrase stuck like gum under the table for decades. Long enough to recall the way Julia once left me off a group vacation email back in college and swore it was just a glitch. It's never a glitch. It's never a mistake. After the crying came the quiet. That kind of hollow quiet that feels more like a reset button than sadness. I wiped my face, walked to the hallway closet, and reached up for the old black fireproof box on the top shelf. I hadn't opened it since Grandpa Joe's funeral 3 years ago. Inside were his service medals, an old fishing license, a faded family photo where even my smile looked photoshopped, and the deed. I remember the lawyer's voice like it was yesterday, because Julia's jaw dropped the same way mine did. The cabin goes to Claire. Joe wanted it that way. They tried to challenge it, of course. Even made Mom sniff her way through a conversation about how unfair it was and that Grandpa must have been confused. But legally, it was done. My name, my land. They told themselves I wouldn't do anything with it, that it didn't really matter because, in their heads, I still didn't matter. I let them think that. Hell, maybe a small part of me even believed it too, until tonight. It was nearly midnight when I turned on my laptop. The house was dead quiet except for the old radiator ticking in the corner like a slow, boiling heartbeat. I opened a blank document and stared at it for a while, the cursor blinking like it was daring me to say something out loud for the first time in years. And so I did. Effective immediately, the Matthews family cabin is not available for personal or group use without written permission from the legal owner. Trespassing will be reported. I didn't write my name. I didn't have to. They'd know exactly who it came from. I saved the file as a PDF, attached it to an email addressed to the entire family, and added one sentence in the body. Thought I should be clear, since you all love clarity. I stared at the screen a moment longer, debating whether to send it now or wait until morning. But then I thought no, let them see it tonight. Let them stew in it. Let them wake up, already halfway into their panic. So I clicked send and sat back, suddenly feeling more rested than I had in months. I thought about Julia's email again, about how she said everyone had agreed it'd be better without me. I wondered if they even discussed it or if she just sent it out and assumed everyone else would fall in line. Either way, the result was the same. They drew the line first. I just made sure they knew it wasn't in the sand anymore. I got up, poured myself another cup of coffee even though I knew I wouldn't sleep. I didn't want to. I wanted to be awake when the world shifted ever so slightly in my favor. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. But it was mine. Every inch of that cabin, every tree, Every dusty chair, every drawer filled with mismatched fishing gear, it was mine. They thought they could cut me out without consequences. But cutting me out only meant I had nothing left to lose. And a woman with nothing left to lose is a dangerous thing. Tomorrow, I'd start with changing the locks. I didn't sleep that night, but it wasn't out of guilt or second thoughts. It was adrenaline. Cold, steady, quiet adrenaline. The kind that doesn't make your hands shake, but makes your breath just a little deeper, your movements a little more precise, like your body already knows it's preparing for war. When the sun finally slipped up behind the hills, all pale and soft like it had no idea what the day held, I was already dressed, keys in hand, driving toward the cabin. It was around 10 miles from my house to the cabin. I drove it in under 5 minutes. That's like 35 miles per hour. I parked just outside the main gate, the one Grandpa Joe put in after Julia's boyfriend crashed the family boat and tried to claim the road wasn't marked. Funny how history always loops back if you pay attention. The gravel crunched under my boots as I walked toward the porch, which still smelled faintly like motor oil and citronella. The lock was still the same one they'd had since I was a teenager, a rusted old thing you could probably jiggle open with a screwdriver and enough time. So I brought new ones, thick, matte black, with a keypad entry. State-of-the-art, weatherproof, cold and impersonal. I wanted every piece of this place to send the same message, not yours anymore. Inside, everything looked exactly how they left it last fall. Same plaid couch, same moose-shaped lamp, same thin blanket folded over the arm like it was part of the decor. Julia's cardigan was still hanging on the coat hook by the door, like she believed her spot here was permanent and untouchable. I took it down, folded it neatly, and shoved it into a storage bin with the rest of their forgotten things. By mid-morning, the locks were changed. I took my time walking the perimeter, checking the windows, updating the Wi-Fi password, even replacing the welcome mat with one that said private property. Then I drove back into town and made a quick stop at the sheriff's office. Deputy Harris remembered me from high school. His wife used to teach English, always said I had a sharp tongue for a girl that quiet. I handed him a copy of the deed and a typed-up letter stating that no one had permission to enter the property but me. He didn't ask many questions. He just read it, nodded, and said, "You planning to be there this weekend?" I shrugged and told him I'd be nearby. By Thursday, the group text lit up like a Christmas tree. Julia sent a cheery message, just a reminder. Cabin weekend coming up. Let's bring snacks and good vibes only. I didn't respond. Nate replied with a thumbs up. Mom sent 3 heart emojis. You'd think they were 15 years old and planning a slumber party, not pushing 50 and playing dumb about a cabin they no longer had any legal right to enter. Then came Julia's next message. This one clearly meant to steer the narrative. Hey guys, Claire's been a little off lately. Let's all be gentle, okay? We know she's struggling. Struggling? I stared at my phone like it might laugh out loud. The only thing I was struggling with was how long to let them spin their fantasy before I cut the music. But I didn't say a word. I just watched. Friday came. I got up early and parked my car a half-mile down the road, tucked behind a thicket of pines. From there, I had a clean view of the cabin driveway. At noon sharp, their SUV came rolling in, Mom's silver Highlander, clean as ever, Julia at the wheel like she was leading a parade of privilege. They didn't even hesitate, didn't slow down, didn't consider for a second that the world might have shifted since they sent that email. But the sheriff's deputy was already there, leaning against his cruiser with one hand resting casually on his belt. When Julia got out and smiled like she thought he was part of the welcome committee, I saw the moment it hit her, the way her smile froze just a little too long, the way Mom stayed in the car pretending to fiddle with the radio. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. I saw the gesture, Deputy Harris pointing toward the sign I had staked by the mailbox. Private property. Authorized entry only. Julia crossed her arms. Mom leaned forward and mouthed something. Nate got out last, walking slow like maybe his shoes were heavier than usual. Eventually, they got back in the car and reversed out, kicking up gravel like dust behind a secret. I waited until the road was clear again, then stepped out from behind the trees, hands in my coat pockets, calm as ever. I didn't wave. I didn't smile. I just stood there and watched them disappear around the bend. My phone buzzed. It was Julia. Her name lit up the screen in all caps like it could still control me. I let it ring once. Twice. Then I silenced it. No more nice girl. They forgot who owns the house. I just reminded them. It didn't take long for the tides to turn. People like my family always float to the surface when they smell something slipping from their grasp, like wet rats on a sinking dock pretending they were never part of the problem. The first sign came on Monday, voicemail from Nate, 2 minutes long, his voice carefully low and laced with that old, performative concern he used to pull out whenever he needed a favor or forgiveness. Hey, Claire. Look, I think maybe things got taken out of context. I talked to Julia, and she's really sorry about the email. You know how she is, gets carried away with group decisions. Mom's been stressed, and we all just miss you, okay? Maybe we can all get together and talk this out like adults. I'll bring the good bourbon. He sounded like someone trying to repair a bridge he'd already set fire to, then pissed on, and then politely asked if I had any wood left to rebuild it. I didn't delete it. I just played it once and let it sit there like a dead thing rotting in the inbox. Later that day, I got a call from Mom. I didn't answer at first, let it go to voicemail like I'd done with Nate. But she called again and again. By the fourth try, I picked up. I don't even know why. Habit, maybe? Muscle memory from a lifetime of being trained to hear her out. She didn't start with hello, of course. She started with a sigh. The kind of long, slow exhale meant to set the stage for a performance soaked in guilt and self-pity. Claire, sweetheart. I don't even know where to begin. I'm just so tired. It's been so hard since your father passed. You know how he kept this family together. Without him, I just feel like we're all falling apart and maybe I said some things I didn't mean. Or maybe I didn't say anything when I should have. But baby, you know we love you. I didn't respond. Just let the silence stretch between us like a tightrope she couldn't walk. That's when her voice cracked, just enough to sound rehearsed, but still believable to someone who didn't know her tricks. Julia was just trying to plan something nice, and I don't think she meant to hurt you. We just thought maybe you needed some space. Space. That's rich, coming from a woman who once read my diary and called it parental responsibility. I ended the call without a word. No screaming, no lecture, no closure. Just one clean cut. That seemed to confuse them the most, my refusal to play the part I'd always been assigned. On Wednesday, the letter came. Handwritten, cream stationery, Julia's looping script so familiar it made my stomach turn. That same handwriting had once forged my signature on a permission slip in high school, resulting in me being suspended for skipping class, something she did regularly but always found a way to blame on me. The letter smelled faintly of her expensive perfume, a detail I was sure she'd added intentionally, like memory manipulation by scent. I didn't read the whole thing. Just caught the opening lines. Claire, I've been doing a lot of thinking. I realize now how my actions might have come across. That was all I needed to know. It was the same empty dance, the same smoke she always blew when caught red-handed. I folded it once, set it down, and slid open the drawer with the deed copies I had printed weeks ago, highlighted, underlined, crisp as a court summons. I mailed them a copy each. Nate. Julia. Mom. No letter, no note, no explanation. Just the deed, their names absent, mine sitting solo and shining like a lighthouse they thought they could burn down. A day later, Julia texted. Got your little message. Is this really what you want? I stared at it for a long time, thumb hovering over the keyboard. But I didn't reply. She didn't deserve words. She'd spent her whole life twisting mine around until they strangled me. Silence, I've learned, is the most honest thing I can give her. By Saturday, I decided to drive back to the cabin. Not because I thought they'd try anything, but because a small, satisfied part of me wanted to walk across those floors again, to feel the boards creak under my feet instead of theirs. I drove slow this time, not in a rush, letting the woods swallow me up like they used to when I was a kid sneaking off during arguments. But when I pulled up the gravel path, I saw something unexpected, a figure sitting on the porch steps, legs stretched out, bottle in hand, like a ghost waiting for judgment. Nate, wearing a jacket too nice for the woods and a face too smug for someone who claimed to be sorry. He raised the bottle slightly, half a peace offering, half a bribe. "Didn't think you'd show," he said, voice casual like we were meeting for coffee, not standing on the edge of the battlefield. I stayed in the car for a moment, engine still running, mind turning. He came early, alone, and brought whiskey. I opened the door but didn't step out, just stared him down and said, "You've got 5 minutes." And, for the first time in a long time, I saw something flicker in his eyes, uncertainty. Finally, he didn't stand up when I finally stepped out of the car, and I noticed the cap on the bourbon bottle was already off, sitting beside him like a silent witness to his patience or maybe his nerves. Nate never liked to wait for anything. He was the kind of man who showed up late and still expected a warm welcome, so the fact that he'd been sitting on my steps, in the cold, drinking alone, told me more than whatever speech he was about to deliver. He looked up at me with that easy grin he used to charm teachers and bank tellers, the kind of smile that was built for escaping trouble, not owning it. "Didn't think you'd come," he said, his voice soft, probably rehearsed in the rearview mirror a few times before I arrived. I walked past him without answering, unlocked the door, and stepped inside, flipping on the lights like it was my house, which, of course, it was. The creak of the floorboards followed me, that familiar hollow groan that used to scare me as a kid when I thought the cabin breathed at night. I didn't offer him to come in, but he followed anyway, uninvited like always. Inside, it smelled like pine and dust and history, some good, most not. He handed me the bottle as if we were sharing something, as if there was still an us in the story. I took a sip because I wasn't interested in being the bigger person today. The bourbon burned its way down, familiar and sharp, not unlike our conversations. "I get it," he said finally, after a silence that I had no intention of breaking. "I do. We messed up. It wasn't right. But you've got to understand how things have been since Dad passed. Mom's a wreck, Julia, and I've been trying to hold the pieces together. We didn't mean to hurt you. It was bad communication, that's all." I laughed. Not loudly, not cruelly, just a small, tired chuckle that said more than any list of grievances could have. Bad communication? Nate, you could publish a goddamn textbook on bad communication and sell it at every family reunion. He rubbed the back of his neck like that might reset something inside him, then sat down at the edge of the couch where Grandpa Joe used to fall asleep during fishing shows. "Look, I talked to Mom. Talked to Julia, too. We're willing to make things right. Buy you out of the place. We'd pay more than it's worth, just so there's no hard feelings. We thought it might help everyone move on." There it was. The bribe. The great Matthews family solution to any emotional inconvenience. Throw money at it and hope it disappears. I looked at him for a long moment, holding his gaze without blinking, then took another sip of bourbon and said, "Do you remember when you told me I was adopted?" He froze for half a second. "What?" "Claire, that was a joke. We were kids." "No," I said, setting the bottle on the table with a slow, steady clink. "You were 12. I was 8. You sat me down right here, on this exact rug, and told me Mom and Dad found me in a shelter but didn't want me to know because I wasn't supposed to be part of the family. And when I cried for 2 days, you told everyone I was just being sensitive. Mom grounded me for disturbing the peace. Julia said I was being dramatic." He didn't respond, just stared at the bottle like it might offer him a better answer than his own memory. I stood up and walked toward the fireplace where an old family photo still hung. Mom, Dad, Nate, Julia, and me in that order. Stiff smiles and itchy sweaters. I reached up, unhooked it from the nail, and held it in my hands for a moment. "You want to buy me out?" I said, turning slowly to face him. "That's funny. You all kicked me out emotionally years ago, and now that I've got the only key to the front door, you're offering cash like it's penance." He stood up too now, more defensive than confident, his hands raised slightly like he was still trying to negotiate peace. "Claire, come on. This isn't about ownership. It's about the family." "No," I said, walking past him toward the hall closet. "It's about you being uncomfortable that for once, you're not in control." I pulled out the storage bins I had prepared earlier that week, the ones with all the framed photos, yearbooks, vacation souvenirs, even Julia's stupid little needlepoint pillow that said Lake Life, Best Life. Every relic of a shared past, every item they might use to pretend they belonged here. I loaded them into the back of my car while Nate stood there like he wanted to stop me but didn't quite know how. "You're not saying no," he said quietly, watching me close the trunk. "And I'm not saying yes," I replied, brushing past him. "You don't get to corner me into choices anymore." I got in my car, rolled down the window, and looked at him one last time before pulling away. "Tell them," I said. "Tell them silence doesn't mean forgiveness." That night, I sent one text to the group chat. No emojis, no fluff, no warning. Don't ever assume silence means forgiveness. Then I blocked their numbers and went to sleep in the cabin alone for the first time since Grandpa died. The quiet felt earned. The first thing I noticed when I pulled into the cabin driveway that morning was how still everything was, not the eerie kind of still that comes before a storm, but the peaceful kind, the kind that wraps around you like an old wool blanket you forgot you had. Warm in the right places, scratchy in others, but always yours. The trees weren't just standing. They were watching, bending gently in the breeze like they'd been waiting for me to finally show up alone. And I did. No car trailing behind mine. No screeching voices arguing over who forgot the beer or whose playlist was getting cut. Just me, a cooler full of food, a camera tripod, and a plan that was half nostalgia, half middle finger. I unpacked slowly, intentionally, letting the silence guide me from trunk to porch like a ceremony. Inside, everything smelled like cedar and ash, and for once, I didn't mind. I didn't rush to open the windows or light a candle to mask it. I wanted to breathe it in unfiltered, undiluted, just like this moment. I was going to do it all, every single thing we used to do as a family. And I was going to do it better. Not out of spite, though maybe a little. Mostly because I wanted to remember what joy felt like without their fingerprints all over it. I started with the firewood. Grandpa Joe always stacked it in a pyramid, not a crisscross, and I copied his method even though I could hear Julia in my head insisting the other way burned faster. I built the fire with the care of someone restoring a memory, each log placed with quiet purpose. Once it caught, I sat beside it with a coffee in one hand and a book in the other, the kind of thick paperback they'd roll their eyes at because who reads on vacation? Later, I grilled a steak just the way Dad used to, too much salt, a little char on the edge, but perfect with a cold drink. I sat at the picnic table, phone set on the ledge, camera rolling as I took the first bite. "Here's to tradition," I said, holding up the plate, smiling without force. Then I uploaded the video, tagged it #FamilyTradition, and waited. The comments started slow, mostly acquaintances, old coworkers, a few college friends who didn't know the full backstory but sensed something under the surface. Then the flood started. Julia unfollowed me within the hour. Clean break, silent as always. No confrontation, just a digital erase. Mom went a step further. She blocked me entirely. I know because I checked. Not because I cared, but because I wanted to see how long it would take for her to draw the line. The same one she always threatened, but never had the guts to stick to. And Nate? He sent me one final message. Just one line. "You won. Hope it was worth it." I stared at it for a long time, longer than I care to admit. Not because it hurt, but because it was so empty. Like he'd typed it out expecting it to sting, like he still thought I was playing the same game he was. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it. I let it sit there in my inbox like a souvenir from a life I'd finally outgrown. That night, I lit a fire in the pit behind the cabin, made a s'more with marshmallows I bought myself, no one there to judge how many I ate or how burnt I liked them. I toasted one to the stars, the same sky we used to sit under as kids, pretending we saw constellations when really we were just trying not to look each other in the eyes. I filmed that too. Captioned it, "The stars are brighter without noise." The next morning, I went fishing. Took the old rod Grandpa left behind, tied on a lure, and sat by the dock with a thermos of coffee and a patience I'd never had when they were around. I didn't catch much. Didn't care. The water was still, the sky clear, and for the first time in what felt like decades, I didn't feel like I was taking up too much space just by breathing. I wasn't too much here. I was just here. By the end of the weekend, I'd done it all. The pancakes with blueberries we used to make, the old board game we never finished, even the dumb ghost story Nate always told even though we all knew it by heart. I did it not to relive anything, but to reclaim it. I wasn't trying to win, no matter what Nate thought. I was trying to remember who I was before they rewrote my role in the script. On Sunday evening, I stood on the porch, the last of the firewood burned down to embers, the sky turning that deep blue that always means the season's changing. I looked around one last time, at the lawn chairs no one would fight over this year, at the empty cooler, at the picnic table where no one argued about politics or allergies, or who forgot to bring the ketchup. I looked at all of it, and I smiled, not because I was happy, exactly, but because I was clean. Unburdened. I stepped inside, turned off the lights, walked down the hall, and closed each door softly behind me like tucking the cabin in for a long winter nap. Then I stood at the front door, hand on the lock, breath steady. "I was never trying to win," I whispered, voice small but full. Then I turned the deadbolt, locked it from the inside. And that was the end of the trip. The real one.